It's a great evening, right? Woo! Excited to be here. My name's Amanda King. I'm the communications director for the city, and I'm just thrilled to have you all here with us tonight to celebrate some pretty remarkable milestones in our broadband journey. So to get us started this evening, I'd like to invite Mayor Wade Troxel up to share a few comments.
Thank you, Amanda, and thank you all for being here. Hey, what an exciting day for Fort Collins. You know, who would like to be the first to get high-speed internet in Fort Collins? I know I'm playing to the audience on that one. But, you know, we're so fortunate here in Fort Collins. I think a lot of times about the legacy people have left before us, and that council's before us, and that's true with this as well. We're really at this point in our history where what we're celebrating today is really about Fort Collins' future. I would like to recognize our council members that are here, and Jerry Horak should be here, Ken Summers, and Ross Kniff, and I don't see them yet, but they'll be here, and then Kristen Stevens is here. All right, Kristen. And then I know that Bob Overbeck and Ray Martinez weren't able to be here tonight, and Ray actually gave me a letter. And so this is something that had unanimous support of our council after our November election. And let me read Ray's letter. Good evening. Although scheduling conflicts prevented me from attending today, I am very enthusiastic for this event that we're celebrating tonight. I am so happy to support what we have accomplished thus far, and I am confident that we will accomplish our mission to bring the right people on board to decide the new utility of broadband. We have demonstrated in the past that we can tackle very big projects with very few hiccups. This will be our biggest demonstration yet, and that will prove our competency and capability. And it really points to our great city staff, and up until this point, you know, I think wonderful things have been happening. One of the things that Darren and I talk about regularly is that we're a plan and do city. And we plan and then we execute. And some cities plan but don't do. Some cities don't plan and do. We're a plan and do city. And I would liken tonight to a commencement, a graduation, if you will, where we're moving on from our very deliberative planning process to our execution of our broadband utility. And with that, I would just like to share some of the experience from my perspective. Back in 2011, Pat Burns, who you'll hear from in just a moment, we had a discussion about Gig U and about the possibility of having broadband in your community, ubiquitous broadband within your community. In 2013, I chair the Futures Committee of our City Council. It's a subcommittee of council, and where we invited the incumbents to come and tell us what's the future of ubiquitous connectivity and high-speed connectivity within our community. And basically the response was, well, they really didn't have a plan, and two, that it's about content. There wasn't anything about the infrastructure. And that's something that the city does well, does extremely well. And that was an eye-opener for us to really think about what is high-speed connectivity within our community. And that really started the things and the wheels in motion that got us to the point where there was a budget offer and started the very deliberative planning that led us to the initial vote, or the 152 vote, that even allowed us to have a conversation within our community back in 2015. And then last November 2017, we had the vote that basically our citizens approved at 57% that we should pursue a broadband utility within our community. And so it was with that support that we are here today, and we've pursued the bonding and our celebration here today. So I'm just so thrilled to be here, to be your mayor at this time in our history, that we can actually say we're going to be building out a wonderful high-speed broadband utility within our community to serve all of our citizens in a way that will help future-proof our community and make our community what we love and expect today. It's just a wonderful place that it is, and this is an important element of that. So all of you that have played important roles in getting us to where we are here today, please accept my thank you. And let's move forward, and let's do it in a way that is very much of a Fort Collins sort of way. And let's make a great success, and we'll look back and say, what a wonderful concept, and the community supported it, and let's move forward. With that, let me introduce Darren Atterbury, our city manager. Darren?
I thought that Mayor Troxel was going to talk about the physics of why we're here, and so this will just take a few minutes. Professor Troxel should have done this. He was remiss. So, and I know that the technology geeks in the room are going, "This is sweet. This is like the best evening you could have in Fort Collins." So this is what's called twisted pair copper wire. This is serving many of your homes in Fort Collins. This is and this is a dying technology. This is a technology that has served its purpose very well, but it's limited from a physics standpoint. This is another technology that you all, some of you have at your home, and it's called coax cable, and it's limited from a physics standpoint as well. And I know there are many in the room that could speak better to this than I can. And this is what we call a bundle of fiber. And so this little piece right here is what's going to go to every property in Fort Collins within the next 3 years. Mike tells me we've gone from 4 years to 3 years. Yeah, right on. Mike's saying you should not have said that publicly, but that's the challenge. But really, it's not the limitations that people like Coleman and others tell me. It's not the limitations of the glass. It's the gear on both sides that is where the limitations are. And so our ability to go to the most highest performing internet service in the United States at 1 gig to a 10 gig system can be done with gear on both sides rather than having to rewire your entire community. And so that's a big deal. I don't usually stand up and start with something like that, but you know, the mayor talked about plan and build. What comes to my mind right now is the idea of being very clear about a vision, aligning resources to that vision, and then building systems that ensure that you're building what you promised and you're building the best in class. We know who best in class entities are. Coleman from Chattanooga is here. We know that Chattanooga, we know that Longmont, Colorado are best in class. In fact, PC Magazine said that Longmont was the fastest internet system in the United States. We have spent a lot of time learning from these best in class systems. And people like Mike and Jeff and others have also gone out and visited those systems that haven't performed so well, that have not done well at all, and we wanted to learn from those as well. So what's beautiful about this is I look around the room, and I won't ask you to raise your hand, but I think this is a group that's really the friends of broadband in Fort Collins, the friends of a gigabyte city, the friends of understanding the benefit of being a connected city versus the cost of being a disconnected city. And that was what this was all about. This was never, the mayor, others can speak to this, this was never about predetermined, let's do a municipal broadband utility. In fact, that was always the underdog. And, but year after year as we studied and we worked with so many of you in the room, we pared down the options. By the way, the voters spoke, as the mayor said, 3 times on the topic of broadband, and 3 times. We now hear, we've already voted yes once, twice, or 3rd time, when are you going to get to it? So some of the things that we're going to be spending a lot of time is on message control and not overpromising. We're going to be to every property, every premise within this community. Everyone knows that. The great news is we have strong support from the community through votes. We have unanimous support from the mayor and city council. I've got my marching orders very clearly, and there's no going back. The money's in the bank, and we have a little symbolic, maybe a big symbolic check here. So this is, you can call tonight whatever you'd like to call it. You might call it a launch. You might call it a commencement. You might, whatever you want to call it, there is no going back from here. Fort Collins is building a broadband utility as a municipal provider. I also want to say we have been very diligent with Mike Becksted's leadership around going out with requests for proposals for the plant and for design and for an executive director, for a marketing director. We are propping up a new business, and I want to introduce Aaron Shanley, who's here. Aaron, would you stand up, please? Aaron is, Erin is the Broadband Utilities new marketing manager, and she comes with a lot of experience in this space, and she's going to teach us a lot. And I just want to welcome you. I'm really delighted. I had hoped to be able to announce tonight that we have an executive director, and I'm looking at Mike. We've got some work to do in that space, but we've been working diligently, and I'm really optimistic about where things are headed right now, so excited about that. And what we now need to do is we need to get started. Design starts in August, dirt starts, he says, November. I would love, and I don't get to do it, I would love to have every single one of you stand up and tell your connection, your story to this evening, and to our broadband journey. And we hope over time you'll get a chance to do that. We don't get to do that this evening, but I do want to recognize a few folks because of the push-ups that have been going on, and then you're going to also hear from, as the mayor said, a few folks. So let me recognize, and if you would just mind standing up, and then we'll applause as I get through the list. But first of all, I want to thank Mayor Troxel and Kristen Stevens, and if there are other council members here, man, you have provided such amazing vision and direction and confidence, and it's you're amazing board of directors of this future utility. And so Wade and Kristen, other council members, if you're here, would you stand up and can we applaud them again for their leadership? There have been several core teams. There's the past core team and our current core team. So let me mention a few names, and please stand up as I mention your name. Amanda, who was up here earlier, Amanda King. Sana Kendall. Jenny Sawyer, I think, is here this evening. There's Jenny back in the back. Andres Gavadon, Clint Reitz, David Young, Rob Mosby, Tim McCullough, Lisa Rosentowski, Carolyn Kuntz, Brad Ward, Coleman Keene, who I mentioned earlier, Cyril Vidigar, and Grant Smith. Can we give them a big thank you? I also want to just acknowledge the work of some of the sub-teams as well. You guys were amazing. The Citizens Committee who worked with us, whether you worked on the Citizens Advisory Committee, or whether you're part of the campaign, which a lot of you will be standing, would you mind standing up so we can say thank you as well, Colin? Another thing that differentiates Fort Collins from so many other places is how talented our community members are and our business leaders, and it's just amazing, and I'm in awe and want to just tell you how much we appreciate the partnership. And this thing really, we would not be here, and Colin's going to talk on your behalf a little bit later, but we would not be here without an active group of citizens who really, really want to see cool things happen in Fort Collins. And Colin, I'll tell you, and to everyone else, I was doing a little Talk It Up session at Channel 14 today about our biking community. And, I always start these shows by saying what a privilege it is to be in this role at this time in a community that allows us to think big and to just be aspirational and to believe that if world class is going to happen somewhere, well, why not in Fort Collins? And to be leaders in different roles, and I look at this table and the different roles that we get to be leaders in, to have residents and businesses that allow us to do that and to do this kind of, to be up here to talk about this kind of thing is remarkable. There aren't a lot of communities in the United States that get to do that, and we're deeply appreciative of that. We take that seriously, and we also know that some people at the ballot did not support this initiative. And there's two reactions to that. One is to say, well, there are more yes votes than no votes, so we're plowing forward. The other way to look at it is to say, we want to prove to those folks who didn't support it for various reasons, legitimate reasons, that we want to prove that this local government is responsible and capable of pulling it off and capable of perhaps changing your opinion over time. And so we're very intentional about that. So let me ask we have a few speakers that are going to just share their perspective. We are so fortunate to have these three individuals. Dr. Patrick Burns, he's the Dean of Libraries and Vice President for IT at Colorado State. Dr. Burns was, if not the very first conversation that I had in my office about this topic, he was certainly in the one of the first three community members and business leaders to talk about a vision and talk about why not Fort Collins. And then I'm also going to ask Kurt Richardson. I think everyone in the room knows that Kurt is the founder of OtterBox Products and Blue Ocean, and has been an incredible supporter of the Fort Collins community. And I have lots of stories, but I can tell you how appreciative and how thankful we are for Kurt and Nancy being co-creators in this thing, and local government cannot do this alone, and Kurt and Nancy have been phenomenal. And then Colin Garfield is he's just a workhorse, and he invested and engaged in the dialogue, both the technical side of things, and then really the leader of the 2B Citizen Committee with a lot of other folks who are in the room. So if you guys would come up and just share a little bit, we would appreciate that very much. So welcome, you guys. Thank you.
So I've got my timer started. I'm Pat Burns, the Vice President for IT at Colorado State University. If I'm not done in 10 minutes, just wave your watches at me and I'll just exit the stage left. I want you to think about where we should be going for futures. I've got a fair amount of experience in that area. I was the director of the WestNet Regional Network from 1986 through 1996 that got networking started in Colorado and 5 surrounding states. I've been involved in national networking projects, regional networking projects, state networking projects, and the last one I wanted to be involved in is local high-speed connectivity. Well, all those other things were happening with fiber, and the local high-speed connectivity wasn't happening until Blair Levin, who was number 2 at the FCC in 2011, formed a company called Gigabit University, which was enticing cities of modest size with universities as the most attractive place to build gigabit networking or get gigabit networking. And as Darren said, that was 2011. And when you think about any new project, especially something this big, you ask yourself 3 questions. Should you, could you, and would you? Well, we joined that, and Tony Frank approved us joining that, coming over to visit with the city in 2011, and we said, yeah, we should be doing this. And they had to answer the questions, could you and would you? And so it's now 2018. So last night as I was preparing my remarks, I started out writing a poem. I got through one line of that poem and then abandoned it, but that one line is, as I was growing old and gray, but now it's 2018, and here we are. Yeah, I am old and gray, I've been around the block a few times. Nice to meet you, my friend. So it's taken us a while to get here, but we know now what mistakes other communities have made, and we know how to do this well and successfully. And I have every confidence that the city of Fort Collins is going to do this at the same level of quality and affordability as they do their electrical utility, which is better than you can get from anywhere else. Niels Bohr, the famous physicist who invented everything there is to know about the basic atom, espoused, prediction is so difficult, especially about the future. Even so, I'm going to make a prediction that networking as a municipal utility is going to be the best thing that's happened to this city in this first half of this century. Look at what the internet did for us in the last half of the last century. And to paraphrase Teddy Roosevelt, the modern innovative city must be progressive, else it shall soon cease to be a modern innovative city. This is something that's very progressive, and benefits of the competition are going to benefit those 43% of the people who voted no, as well as it's going to benefit all the people who are subscribers. And there have been studies done that showed, and we already see, that the incumbents are upping their speeds and lowering their costs. So even if you don't subscribe to the city service, you're going to have a lower cost for your service and higher capacity. That's two good things. Let's do a little math. There's close to 100,000 sites on the internet in Fort Collins. All of them should benefit from the competition. If they benefit from just $10 a month lowered costs, and there are studies that showed that the benefits could be $40 to $50 per month, $10 per month times 100,000 subscribers is $1 million a month. $12 million a year over the 15 years of the Broadband project, it's $180 million benefits to all of the city without any taxpayers' dollars being expended upon it. How many times can you say a city is going to save the citizens a couple $100 million over 15 years? That's huge. And so another aspect is we have a Cray supercomputer at CSU that we share with Woodward Governor. We went to the incumbents and said, I need a gigabit circuit between Woodward and CSU. And we went 4 years ago, and Scott Bailey, who went to the city with me, raise your hand, Scott, looked into how much it cost for just a gigabit circuit between Woodward and CSU. It was $3,200 a month from the cheapest of the three incumbents. Think of the benefit of getting gigabit for $100 a month or something like that. It's going to be awesome. And you know, I've been involved in networking a long time. It's always had unanticipated, unexpected, and profound benefits. We can't even realize what ultra-high-speed connectivity is going to do for us in the future as we go to artificial reality and virtual reality and start transmitting movies with AR and VR across our infrastructure. This is going to future-proof the city and put us back on the map as a progressive city. We at CSU are in dire need of this. We have 30,000 students, 2,000 faculty, and about 5,500 staff. And we are implementing big data programs, new degrees. We haven't been able to move the data around in the city that we need to move around. We're hyper-connected all the time. And I've got a little story. I was teaching a high-performance computing class a few years back, and I wanted to give them a big data problem to compute on. So I had constructed a 1 gigabit input file. And I was at home, and I started uploading it over one of the incumbents' links, which was the best I could get at the time. Took an hour and 45 minutes to uplink a 1 gigabit file. So over that night, I said, I made a mistake in the input file. So I regenerated that file the next morning, and I had an hour before I had to leave to go down to my wife's family in Littleton. I didn't have an hour and 45 minutes to upload that thing. So what I did is I put my laptop where I generated the file in my backpack. I biked into CSU. I plugged into Scott Bailey's wonderful local area network. I uploaded that file in 79 seconds. I sent Scott a glowing thank you message for running such a great network. I put my laptop back in my backtop, and I got back to my house in 55 minutes. That's the sort of thing why we need this. You know, I know Colin's going to discuss the importance of network neutrality, so I'm not going to address that, but I'm going to finish with a couple of things, a couple of entreaties to the city. We still have a lot of CSU constituents who live beyond the area that you're going to do the build in. At some point in time, see if you can do something to extend it or allow the people in the local area around here to interconnect to it, because there's be enough capacity and infrastructure to do that. It would be a nice thing to do. The county would love to do that with you, I'm sure. And it's just being right-minded about this. And the other thing is I encourage you to explore what's called the MAX, which is not the same kind of MAX as we have. It stands for Metropolitan Area Exchange. That's where you can exchange traffic locally instead of having to go back and forth to Denver. And of course, we want to peer at CSU with this network. Some of the bigger companies should peer and keep our traffic local here. It'll keep our costs down and our performance up. So I'm thrilled to have been involved in this, and have asked a should you question, and everybody else did the hard work after that. And this is the last piece of networking that I wanted to do before I retired. Now that I'm old and gray, I can fade into the sunset and be happy about it. So thank you all.
Darren, thanks, I think, for asking me to be here. I'm not going to go technical like him, but I will tell you from a business owner's standpoint that this has huge impact. Right now you're sitting in the middle of, or CSU over there will Otter U starts from here and goes that way, so along Meldrum. So we have about 900 employees along this street, and one of the biggest departments we have is our customer service agents here, and they're in a tower, 7-story tower over here. And that is always, that is a growing department for us as Otter grows and goes into new products and new areas. Customer service continues to grow, and it takes up a lot of square footage. And at certain times of the year, we've got to flex as well with those folks, and I wouldn't want to do their job. But many of them, we've tapped into a whole new market with moms and dads who choose to stay home, or people who work part-time and while their spouse is full-time. They're home with kids, they're home by choice, or they're home potentially with elderly parents that need care. Many of us are faced with that these days.
Getting there.
Or just opportunities for those with disabilities. So it brings a whole new flexibility for us in scheduling. Also helps with our square footage needs. We don't need to add as much square footage because people can be at home and work out of their house. At the same time, you know, people are cutting down on travel. So we don't have the footprint. We can reduce our footprint right here in the city by people staying home, working at home, as well as our parking footprint. Darren? Yeah. So to our neighbors, I'm sorry, and you can get his phone number from him. We've talked about that a couple times. So have other people. But as Otter does continue to grow, the ability for people to work at home is a great recruiting tool. We're able to tap into a whole nother base of folks that otherwise we wouldn't, and gives people a lot of opportunity. It's also a great recruiting tool right here because just because of what it does in our town. It makes our town much more attractive, so it gives us a bigger pool to choose from in employees. So again, thank you. Always looking to better our community. For the community, it provides much access for those with lower income. And at Otter, that's one of our big initiatives, is to help them as well as students, and really helps us bring up that next generation, either at school, but also coming into the workforce. It also, from a business standpoint, small business standpoint, makes Fort Collins even more attractive for both retaining our existing businesses, for starting a business, or for relocating a business. So it just really puts us on the map in so many ways. I know Longmont's had some really good success with that. It provides, you know, we talked about options. Anytime all of us have options, we're better off, both with service and price. So always glad to have better service and price. And we are hooked in, I think we're hooked into, Otter is hooked into the same fiber that CSU uses, but
Yeah.
But you know, I live in Timnath, so we're working on a new initiative at night. It's the Extension Cord Initiative. So if you see anybody under the freeway at night, just ignore those guys. So
Talk to Lou Swanson about that.
And it gives our citizens a chance to keep their dollars local. So that's a good thing. But I'm personally thankful to City of Fort Collins for always looking to make our city better, invest in our city, invest most of all in our people. And I certainly appreciate the opportunity tonight to share and about the positive aspects of this and for both Otter and our community. So thank you.
Good evening. So tonight is incredibly special to me. I've worked insanely hard to get to this point. It's almost a year ago we formed our issue committee. And about 2.5 years ago, I first met half of our committee at a public ad hoc committee within the city of Fort Collins. And of course, Pat's been working on this for about 3 times that long. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Colin Garfield. I am a Fort Collins native, the 14th Garfield to graduate from Fort Collins High School, which means we clearly overstayed our welcome here. Founder of Broadband and Beers, and the campaign lead for the Fort Collins Citizens Committee, and also now known as the Broadband guy when walking the streets in Fort Collins, which gets me an occasional free coffee. Like I said, for those keeping score at home, this night is 7 years in the making, if you can believe that. 7 years of tireless work by city staff, council, consultants, and our very own Dr. Pat Burns. Cheers, sir. It's been a hell of a ride, and celebrating tonight is an incredible feeling. Before I go any further, and I know that Darren had done this earlier, but I would like our committee members to briefly stand because I am incredibly proud of each one of you. So please, if you're in the room, please do so. I cannot thank each one of you enough for the amount of time you've sunk into this and entrusting me as your leader of the group. And because it's so fun to say, again, 901,000 versus 15,000. Again. The voters brought it home, but the number's fun. So how did I get tangled up in all this? Well, honestly, it was for the free swag I'm going to get in a few months, hopefully. No. I did it possibly because of the gig speeds, net neutrality, no data caps. It sounds brilliant to me, but realistically, I did it because I love my hometown, and I had something to prove. To myself, to my community, to my committee, and to my future. And honestly, it happened by complete and total accident. Back in February 2016, I got a random email that I kind of wasn't expecting saying that they were hiring, or not hiring, but bringing a few folks onto an ad hoc committee. And so I persistently emailed Ginny Sawyer about 4 times to make sure I was involved with that. So Ginny, if you're in the room, have I officially made the team yet? You know, I thought, why not? You know, this sounds interesting. I have a technical background. My internet is horrendous at home. This is a pretty interesting opportunity. A few meetings later, about 3 months after that, I soon realized how entirely broken this market really is. Plagued by monopolies, duopolies, contracts, data caps, you name it. As my colleague Glenn Akins would always say, I refuse to let Fort Collins just be another city with Comcast and CenturyLink. So thank you, Glenn. I also realized that there weren't a lot of citizens engaged in the subject. I also had to change that. So on a whim, I decided to bring 2 beautiful things together, broadband and beers, hence the name. I started that in August of 2016, and a few events later, I found out the morning of my 3rd event that I had been laid off of a job I had 13 years. It leveled me instantly. I was unsure of myself, I questioned my professional worth, and I was forced to live one day at a time again. I almost actually canceled that event and closed shop, but I decided not to. This was actually one of the better decisions I've made in the last 2 years. With one door closed, opened 3 more instantly. Broadband became my new job, one I'd end up volunteering almost 600 hours in. What started as a random event with only 8 people in August of 2016 will soon be a national launched group in the next 3 months in partnership with the Institute for Local Self-Reliance out of Minnesota. It is our goal to contact hundreds of communities to give them the resources, the tools, and the materials needed to ignite the same conversation that we did over 2 years ago. Very proud of that. It was a calling least expected. Sometimes one cannot seek it out. Fate somehow weaves itself into your tapestry, whether you like it or not. So what does this do for the city? What does this do for all of us? This is a community-driven effort. It always has been, and we will only succeed together. City Broadband offers a 21st century utility that provides equal, unfettered, affordable, high-quality internet to everyone. High-performing broadband is no longer luxury. It's a daily requirement. Bringing disruption to the market, desperately needing an injection of competition, is the only way forward. Residents will soon have a choice. For many, it'll be their first time they've ever had one. Even those who do not subscribe to the service will likely see cost savings every month, as Dr. Burns alluded to earlier. It'll be a bastion against data caps, thwarting off stifling contracts, promotional pricing skirmishes, and laborious trips through endless customer service lines. A beacon for net neutrality practices that do not depend on an FCC that ping-pongs every administration, who seems to favor ill-advised, historic, anti-consumer corporate handouts dictated by a man with a questionably oversized Reese's coffee mug. For those who get that reference. Digital privacy at home without concern of your browsing history being directly connected to an in-house ad network that you do not want. Release from a strangling upload speed for those who choose to create content at home and at businesses, and those who had to upload large files for their at-home businesses. Access for low-income residents who deserve nothing less than high-quality broadband, regardless of their economic status. Amnesty from jumping through endless hoops to qualify for subsidized programs that still offer subpar connection speeds. Reprieve for thousands of Poudre School District, Front Range, and CSU students who simply need a quality connection off campus to complete their schoolwork effectively. No longer will families have inadequate or no connection at home and rely on clogged public Wi-Fi in order to get their homework done. For healthcare providers who send their vital records over the internet and large imaging files every day. Telemedicine for senior citizens who are not able to make it to the doctor's office but can actually have physician appointments at home over high-speed internet. For business owners with high volume transactions, Max, I'm looking at you wherever you are, frightened at consistent downtimes, bad connections, exhausting workarounds, and losing thousands of dollars because of it. For the prospective businesses wanting to bring its employees, its services and products to Fort Collins because of world-class internet access. It's a new age for incubation. It's a new age for retaining brilliant talent in our local workforce, graduates of Front Range and CSU, and finally having some leverage over the Denver market. A potential reduction in traffic as more people can effectively telecommute without having to worry about making a decision based on their connection speed at home. Forging a new path forward that will lend as a model to other cities talking about the same thing across the country, inspiring grassroots groups to make the same difference that we did. Gig cities have always had a decisive advantage for attracting talent and leveraging infrastructure for economic development. We're about to reap that benefit. I have zero interest in seeing my hometown being passed by, zero. For those who do, and some who may not subscribe, those monthly savings can also be re-injected into the local economy, maybe at your local friendly coffee shop, which is a hell of a lot better than going to headquarters in Philadelphia for Comcast. This historic implementation lays the foundation for a smart city, allowing every citizen to fully participate in a gig economy. It's been an absolute blessing the last 2.5 years to be in this position and to be speaking here tonight. It's been a pleasure working alongside city staff, Darren, City Council, Mayor Troxel, my amazing citizen group, and countless residents we've encountered the last 2 years. Several years from now, I'm excited to look back and think about this for just a moment, and smiling, and thinking, we did that together, and damn did we nail it. Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you guys very much, and hopefully you got a sense of how deeply people care, how passionate, and how much work this has taken. The opportunities that people like Kurt see in this, and we talked about who we have come up here, and a parade, a line of business leaders and leaders in the community, and various citizens that, and by the way, I will say, when the mayor asked I think it was the mayor asked who wants the service first, my wife, Deborah, who's sitting here, has been saying that for the last 3 years. So we get yeah. But I just love the flavor of Fort Collins. I love the fact that people love this place. How many of us have been in other communities where you don't get that sense of love for the community? And man, I'm so thankful for the leadership that you all have provided, and just the role that each of you and everyone in the room plays in co-creating this community. It's a really, really big deal. I remember when a few of us were in Washington, D.C. a number of years ago, and we had met with the FCC about a really important Supreme Court telecommunications case. And the FCC suggested we sit down with a nonprofit executive director named Deb Scotia. And so we sat down with Deb and we talked, and she's the executive director of Next Century Cities. Cities who are very intentional about becoming smart cities, or not being left behind, or ensuring that these cities are seen as best practice cities that are differentiators and all the words we've used, that are future-proofing and all that. So we sat down in a coffee shop in DC with Deb and talked for about an hour, and she said, so let me see if I have this right. She said, you have an incredibly supportive community around best practices and operational excellence. Yeah, kind of, we do have that. You have a utility that has an incredibly, first of all, an electric utility, Tim and Kevin and others, that has a great relationship, a very strong brand with their local ratepayers. And I said, yeah, and she said, and like 99% of your system is undergrounded. I mean, and by the way, if you don't know this, most of you do probably in the room, that's unique. We are, the last I heard, which was about 1.5 years or 2 years ago, we are the most undergrounded community in the entire country. That was a decision that was made 50 or so years ago from community leaders like Wade Troxel and Kristen and Tim McCullough and others that we inherited. This undergrounding, actually I think it was 45 years or so, but this undergrounding that we inherited. So Deb said, and your system's undergrounded? Yep. And you have back office systems that people like Lisa Rosentowski run that are billing systems where you're reliable at these transactions. And by the way, your customer service, you don't have to wait 26 minutes and then someone transfers you and then they hang up on you accidentally. No, we don't have that. Most people, when they call our billing system, they get a person. And by the way, they might get their neighbor. These are people who are doing this job. They live here, and it's not a call center that's somewhere else. And so she said to us, so why aren't you playing in this space? Why aren't you a broadband utility? So here we are. So Deb, I wish she were here. I think she'd be very proud of us. So let me do this. Part of us moving forward, we have to be very intentional about branding. What is this broadband utility going to look like? So we went through, Mike and Amanda and others, Amanda King went through a request for proposal process. We had various businesses proposing to work with us to develop our brand. And the great news, through a competitive process, Actualize, which the team, if you guys would stand up, this is the team of local folks that helped us develop our brand. So let's give them a hand. And I will tell you, This is our team is not an easy team to please and to satisfy, and so I'll apologize. I'm sorry, but well, let's do this. Amanda, I'm not sure how I tee this up other than saying we have a bit of a sneak preview of some of our brand work and the partnership that we've had with Actualize. So let's take a look at this.
Community is built through connections, neighbors and friends, families and colleagues. We connect with one another to build our homes, our businesses, and our cities and towns. Connections matter. They give us a sense of belonging and a sense of purpose. We learn and grow when we connect to resources, to jobs and technology, and to each other. As a hub of innovation, Fort Collins has a storied history of invention, scholarship, and excellence. It's a place where people from all walks of life come together and exchange ideas, building new connections to harness the opportunities of our future. Fort Collins Connection is your community-driven and community-owned fiber network, connecting you to ultra-fast and reliable internet, a local support team that truly cares, and to those we cherish most, down the hall and around the world. In Fort Collins, we work hard and we play hard, and we are proud to make this incredible place our home. Together with Fort Collins Connection, we can connect the dots, connect with each other, and connect our community at the speed of life.
I think it's a beautiful image. I will tell you, you're going to see. I'll just tell a crazy story. I was at Horsetooth in college about a month ago, and I'm not going to mention who the incumbent is, but I was at Horsetooth in college, and I was heading northbound, stopped at the intersection, and I was looking over this way, and I saw this something bright over here. I looked over, and there's a big white van with another brand on it, a Broadband brand. And I thought, we're going to play in this space. We're not going to be obnoxious. We're going to be doing it in a very Fort Collins-esque kind of way. Actualize, I'm so thankful for your partnership. You're going to see our brand all over the place. We want to learn from people like Otterbox, Kurt, and Nancy, and their customer service team. We've already spoken with them about how you do world-class customer service, and we want to learn from you. There are organizations and businesses in this town that do world-class branding. Amanda and Aaron and with Actualize, we're going to be very intentional about that. You're going to see this brand all over the place in a lot of different forms. So I hope it resonates with you when you see it. The other thing I want to mention, and what I'd like to do is have the teams come up. Let's see, the core team and our council member, Kristen and Wade, come up. This is a check. Did you say this is a big check? $142.2 million. This is a check because of Mike's work and Travis's work. I know Travis is here somewhere, and many, many private sector partners and many of my colleagues in the city organization. I think it was June 14th, Mike, those dollars were deposited. This is what signifies the fact that we've launched. So let's give ourselves a big round of applause. So I'm going to ask some of the teams come up, and while you're doing that, I have one person that I want that I did not mention earlier that I do not want to have leave without recognizing, and Dan Coldiron is back. Right back, Dan, stand up. Dan, if you don't know Dan is our Chief Information Officer. And Dan, I just want to say your partnership has been so critical in this process. You've been involved in some really hard conversations and some amazing, hopefully career opportunity meetings for you and your team, but Dan represents the IT side of this as well, of an amazing group of people who are in this room who are doing very serious push-ups. So Dan, thank you for your partnership, and thank you for the role that you've been playing here in this effort. So we appreciate you. Okay.
All right, thank you. That concludes our program, but you're welcome to stay and enjoy the merriment, and we're grateful that you all could join us. Thank you so much.